Hello, my name is Jesse Moreira-Bouchard. I am a clinical assistant professor of human physiology at Sargent, and I'm the PI of the BU Q.U.E.E.R lab. We are a brand new lab, so I don't necessarily have my data to share with you yet, but similarly, I'd like to share with you some of the things we're just getting to working on. A major public health issue, as I think you would all agree with being here today, is that gender and other related variables like sexual orientation and sex assigned at birth are significantly associated with inequities in health outcomes. So in our lab, we are really interested in taking kind of an intersectional approach at understanding how lived experiences of people who are not basically cis straight white men shape the biology of stress responses inside of their bodies. And so I wanted to lead with just a few statistics for you that have very recently been developed, as this work has only been really burgeoning in the queer community for maybe the past decade, to be liberal with it. And those statistics include that queer people at large are at a higher risk of adverse cardiovascular related outcomes than their cisgender heterosexual peers. And three prominent statistics that I always kind of have in my mind are: first, that trans men have about 4 times the odds of having had an MI in a retrospective study as cisgender women. And transgender women had twice the odds of having had an MI. So these are really, really big increases in heart attack rates, with a significant number of cardiovascular deaths and incidents of heart failure being related to myocardial infarction. And then additionally, when we think of one of the silent killers in the world, hypertension, a study found that bisexual women and gay men have about 20% greater odds of having high blood pressure. And notably, high blood pressure is related to 10% of all deaths worldwide as a primary cause. So really, really, really big changes in cardiovascular outcomes. Much of the burgeoning literature supposes that this is related to the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, which is coincidentally activated when you are stressed. And so when we think about kind of the social models of health and how lived experiences shape biological outcomes, it's that transduction from psychological stress into physiological stress that we think may drive the CBD rate. And when your HPA axis is activated, we know this may be the case because cortisol, the major effector of this system, has predominantly negative effects when it's prolonged in exposure on the vasculature, on the heart itself, on shaping the metabolism in the skeletal muscle and in the adipose tissue. So to get an understanding of how stress associates with cardiovascular disease, my very first graduate student, Mr. Evan Nesson up here, has developed an IRB protocol, and we are currently recruiting participants for a study where we're looking at the lived experiences of folks who are straight, lesbian, gay, or bisexual, and who are cisgender men or women, and trying to understand in kind of these intakes that we do with them, what their current cross-sectional depression, anxiety, and stress levels are using psychometric testing, and associating those with measured blood pressure and anthropometrics like hip to waist measurements to get an understanding of their body composition, and then also taking into account some things like their physical activity levels as possible risk mitigating factors. We are still recruiting if you're between 18 and 35 and fit in this category, and then we're also going to be next year starting up a study on transgender and non-binary individuals. So I really hope to get to chat with you more about this afterwards. Thank you.